Are you ready to launch your podcast? It's time for Podcast Now with Restream, the live show that helps you plan, produce, and launch your podcast with the power of Restream. Here's your host, Ian Anderson Gray.
Well, hello! Welcome to episode 12 of Podcast Now with Restream. Very excited to be here today. We're talking about how to create awesome audio branding, and I've got a good friend of mine and an expert in this field, Isabella Russell from Music Radio Creative. So that's very, very exciting. I'd love to know from you if you are watching live or watching the replay. Do pop a comment. Let me know where in the world you are watching from. I can see we've got Melissa watching. I'm sure there are other people watching. I can definitely see there are other people watching today. So let me know. So just to let you know that Isabella can't actually make it today. I've already done the interview last week in the roasting heat of the UK. So that is fun. That was fun. And yes, but so today I'm going to be splitting up the interview into two, and then in the middle I will be answering your questions. So I can see Chanel is watching from Pune in India. We've got Eddie from Nigeria. Great to see you. Hope you're doing really well. So let's see what we've got today, just to let you know a bit more about what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about audio branding, and I suppose the question is really for you. You know, have you thought about visual branding for your show? I think a lot of us have. You know, most of us have thought about logos and colors and all that kind of stuff. But have you thought about audio branding? What even is audio branding? Do you know what audio branding is? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Eddie, great to see you. Hope you're doing well. So in today's episode, I'm going to be joined by the managing director of Music Radio Creative. That's Izabela Russell. And we're going to cover how you can create awesome audio branding for your live show and podcast. And this will include things like sonic logos. Do you know what a sonic logo is? Intros, outros, transitions, voiceovers, music, and more. So we don't tend to think so much about audio, do we? We tend to think about the visuals. And one of the things I love about Restream is the way they've really put a lot of thought into not just the visuals, but also the audio. So you can broadcast in stereo, there's high quality audio mode, and in Restream, you can now actually add background music and things like that as well. We've got Kinsman Apologist, RSA, Dale Proctor from Indiana in the USA. Great to see you. Let me know what your thoughts are on all of this. Well, anyway, couple of things just to let you know. This show, as always, is from Restream. We broadcast on the Restream channels as well as my channels. My name's Ian Anderson Gray. I am the founder of the Confident Live Marketing Academy, and I help entrepreneurs all around the world level up their impact, authority, and profits through the power of confident live video. Now, I use Restream for all of my shows because it's just the easiest and most powerful way to multi-stream. And multi-streaming is the ability to not just broadcast to one channel like YouTube or Facebook, but broadcast to lots at the same time. In fact, today, I think I'm broadcasting to about 14 different channels. Now, that's great. But what makes Restream so awesome is that I can see the comments. I can see the comments from all those different places, and I can interact with you, because at the end of the day, it's great broadcasting to all these different channels. But if I can't grow and build my community, there's not so much point. And so that's why I love Restream. Restream Studio allows you to broadcast to all those different channels, but it also allows you to do it through the browser, and you can add videos, and you can put lots. You can have up to, is it 9? Yeah, you can have up to 9 guests on your show. It's totally nuts, and over 30 destinations you can broadcast to, which is great. Eddie loves Restream. We all love Restream. Well, 2 amazing features that the Restream development team have released. The first one I've already mentioned before. It's the integration with Descript. Descript is this amazing tool that will, all you need to do is just bung your video and audio into Descript, and it will transcribe it, and then you can remove all your ums and ers from it. You can edit it really easily through the text editor. But what you can now do is from Descript, you can then download that or upload it directly into Restream and stream live your edited videos. So if you are prone to doing lots of ums and ers, you can edit them in Descript and upload it to Restream, and then that will allow you to broadcast live. Another really amazing feature, which is so cool, is I'm just looking for the video right now. I should have got this earlier. Where's it gone? Come on, come to me. Oh, there we go. Got it. It's called Restream Pairs. Have you heard of Restream Pairs? Because I am so excited about this. You know, having a guest on your show is amazing because for so many reasons. First of all, it just feels like a conversation. It's just great. And you can bring in experts and from lots of different places onto your show. The other thing is when you bring in a guest, they will hopefully do some marketing for you. They will promote it to their audience. So if you are wanting to grow your audience, not only can you broadcast to lots of different channels using Restream, you can also get your guest to share out your videos to their audience. Well, Dale, it's called Descript. Descript is how you use that. It's amazing. Well, so Descript Pairs allows you to bring on your guest, and they can then choose to stream it to their channels as well. It is amazing. So I've got a little video on this which will explain a little bit more. But I hope you are as excited as me about this, because I am very excited.
To get started, let's first create our Restream event. From here, you'll want to click Events from the left-hand side of your dashboard. Now, click Create Event. For the live stream type, we'll choose Schedule a Live Stream. Now, we'll go ahead and enter in all of our stream data, including the title, description, date, and add a custom thumbnail. Once that's finished, it's time to select which of your personal channels this event will go live to. Once that's done, click Create Event. Now, here comes the part where we invite our guest via Restream Pairs. To do that, click Invite Guests on the event we just created and make sure Allow Guests to stream this event to their channels is checked. Now, copy the link and send it over to the guest you want to be able to stream on their own channels. For this stream, I want to invite my friend Grace, so I'll go ahead and send her the link now.
Oh, thanks, Randy. Perfect. So on my end, all I need to do is make sure that I'm logged into my Restream account and open the link that Randy sent me. So once I open the event, I will be able to see all of the event details and easily click on Join and Stream to my channels. After clicking, I'll be able to select exactly which of my channels to stream on. Now let's go ahead and save these choices. As you can see, the event has been added to my dashboard. So now I'll be able to see and join this event when it's time to go live. As usual, guests can set their own names and emojis. And once I'm ready to go live, I just click Join Stream.
Ah, there she is. Hey, Grace.
Hey, Randy, ready to go live?
I sure am. I'm going to be going out to my YouTube and Facebook channels. What about you?
I've got my Facebook channels, my LinkedIn, and Twitter all keyed up and ready to go.
Awesome. This is going to be a great stream.
Wow. Well, I hope you're excited about that because it is going to be awesome. I can't wait to play with it next time I have a guest who's actually with me live, because today Isabella is not here with me. But I'll tell you a little bit more about Isabella in a minute. Just a bit more about Restream. If you want to have a little play with it, if you want to get a free month, then all you need to do is go to iag.me/Restream. That's iag.me/Restream. Do check it out and let me know in the comments what you think about Restream Pairs. Well, it is time to bring Izabela Russell onto the show. She can't be with me today in person, but I've recorded this little bit in advance. So I am actually live, by the way. This is actually me. I promise you, I am actually live, and I will be here answering your questions in the comments. But Isabella is not, and so we recorded this. So just to let you know a little bit more about Isabella. Isabella is the Managing Director of Music Radio Creative. And over the past 10 years, Isabella has recruited over 150 voice artists, producers and musicians. And her company delivers over 500 orders every month to clients in 130 different countries. Well, can't wait to bring in Isabella. Just a few questions and comments. Eddie is excited. Great to see you. And Melissa is asking a great question. Does the guest need Restream? Really good question. Thank you for that. And yes, they do. So when you give them the link, so normally when you bring in, this is for Restream pairs, by the way, when you want to invite them into Restream Studio, you give them an invite link. Now, if you check the box that allows them to add their own channels, then when they click on that, they will then get the ability to create a Restream account, which is, and then be able to add in their channels as well. So that's how that works. Well, anyway, it is time to bring it in, Isabella. Let me know what your questions are, and I'll come in after the first part of this interview, and I can answer some of those questions. Here we go. Well, hello, Isabella. It's great to have you on the show. I'm really excited to have you here. You're obviously a great friend of mine and Helen's, and also Mike, your husband, who has been on the show as well. So how are things going down in the beautiful Isle of Wight?
Hello, Ian, and thank you so much for having me here. It's lovely here on the Isle of Wight. Currently, nice heat wave. Yay! So enjoying a good weather and sunshine and sea and just kind of as you do.
That sounds good. Yeah, there is a bit of a heat wave here in the UK at the moment. I don't know what it's going to be like. Obviously, we're recording this ahead of time, so probably when we go live, it'll be torrential rain, Arctic conditions. But
heat wave? What are you on about?
Exactly. But so I'm a little bit hot and sweaty here. Yeah. But anyway, it's great to have you on the show. When Mike was on the show, we were talking about how to sound amazing with audio. We're talking about microphones and getting a little bit geeky. Today we're looking at audio branding. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't really think about. We think a lot about the video and images and the visual branding, but we don't talk about audio branding nowhere near enough. But before we get into that, I want to know a little bit more about you. And so I think we met back in, well, you tell me, it was New Media Europe in Manchester. I can't remember which date that was. Was it 2015 or something?
It must have been 2015. That's right. My goodness, time goes by, doesn't it? So yes, we've met, and you are one of our amazing speakers, and kind of our friendship grew from there.
It did. And so I think I spoke to you on a podcast. We had a conversation there, and you had this amazing conference in Manchester and then London. And yes, we've met all over the world. Also in your part of the world, in the Isle of Wight and San Diego. And
yeah, it was fun. It was just a lot of fun. And Gdańsk as well. Didn't we meet in Gdańsk?
Oh, that was right. I don't think. Yes, so you weren't in San Diego, were you? Or were you?
I was too. Yes.
No, you were in San Diego, but yes, in Gdańsk in Poland as well.
There you go. So yes, we go way back, and lots of good interactions along the way. So
absolutely. Well, have you always been in the? I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Have you always been in the world of audio branding? So I mean, obviously the answer to that is no. But tell us what you used to do and the transition to what you're doing today with Music Radio Creative.
So it's not as crazy as it may seem to start with. Okay, there is a genuine link. I will just say that. But actually, my background is in banking. But then I guess you can link it into business. So when I was terribly bored during my maternity leave, is the answer. And Mike, my husband, was running this company in the background. terribly. Let's just say that. Like, you know what, Mike? Let me have a little look, and I'm just going to see if I can just add, a few pennies from myself and just see if I can do anything. And so I did, and I never got back into banking. I absolutely loved being able to experiment with business, and actually just the creative side of things just completely got me hooked to the point where I was like, that's it. I am not going into the world of banking ever again. That's what I want to do for a living. And that was back in 2010, actually. No, 2011, sorry. 2011, so 10 years ago now. And I have not looked back once. I love it. So Mike's background is fully in radio. He was always the creative, absolutely rubbish at business. So when I got into the business side of things, I started to sort of build things with more of a logical mind, which is the banking business, more kind of straight thinking you would expect from that background. And then my creativity flourished, and I fell in love with the concept of audio branding, and kind of learned everything as I was going along. And I was exploring all of those different sides of the audio world. And that's, how I fell into where I am today.
I love that. We all need Isabella in our lives. It's somebody to not tame our creativity, because of course Mike is an incredibly creative person. Many people in this industry are, but when it comes to finances, organization,
the practicalities of, and realities of, can we do this? Can we not do this? Mike always lives up somewhere there on the cloud, and he needs somebody to just walk him down to the level of where the life is, but equally encouragement to push him up and say, actually, you can do it, so it sort of works both ways.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, I don't want to speak for Mike, but I've certainly think I know that my accounts and finances and all these kind of businessy things are incredibly important. It's not that I don't think they're important. It's just that my brain doesn't work in that kind of zone. So that's kind of just the way it is. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. It's all very interesting, and I'd love to know if you're watching live or the replay. Let me know if you identify with any of those things. And what I would say to you is, you might not be married to somebody who is who is got this logical mind, but there'll be people out there that can help you. So maybe it's a mastermind group you can join, or there may be other people that you can maybe bring into your business that can help you. We all need an Isabella. That's what I'm saying here.
You need to go and find an Isabella. Just go into it.
Yeah, it's definitely true. So audio branding, I think a lot of us understand what branding is. If you're watching this, you can see it's branded. We've got Podcast Now logo on the top right. We've got some nice colors going on. That's great. But what is audio branding?
It's exactly the same thing as visual branding, but in audio form. I mean, that's the easiest way to really explain it. Is like, you wouldn't think of starting a company without a logo. And I guess, to a certain degree, the same with a podcast. Podcasters kind of have some sort of logo or visual branding they have to have in order to put their podcast on iTunes. But equally, when you have a YouTube channel, again, you need some sort of idea of a visual brand. You will choose the kind of colors you theme things with. You will choose, hopefully, a font, that you will follow through on all of your thumbnails and all of that stuff. So that's visual branding. And audio is just an extension to it. That's how I like to think of it, because actually, it just forms part of the experience that we give our listeners or viewers. We are all human beings with multiple senses, and it's not just the visuals that we see, it's the audio that we consume too. It's just part of the overall experience. So you kind of have to think of it that way, rather than this isolated audio thing that you push to the side and think, I will do it one day. It's kind of like, no, just do it at the same time, because it has to tie in together. It has to be that whole image that you give to your listener, to your viewer, that has to form that part of that whole package. It's not its own thing.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people think branding is just to do with the logo. Get your logo and you're all sorted. But as we know, it's not just that. It's colors, it's fonts, and then it's not just the visual, it's audio as well. And why do you think it is so important, if we are creating visual content or podcasts and things like that, what I do see a lot of people not really bothering, or they'll just get on at the beginning of their podcast. They won't even have any music or anything. They just get on with it. And in some cases, it kind of works because they're just very good at what they do. The message, the content is amazing. And so they kind of don't really do it. But do you think in most cases, some audio branding would be a really good thing for podcasts and live streams?
Absolutely. And I think actually the first thing that we need to look at is to why people disregard audio in so many cases. And I actually think that it is to do with the way that we as humans are wired. So it's never, this balance between all of our different senses is never there. There is never an equal thing. So, there will be some people who prefer to consume visual content because they are very visual. There are some people who prefer auditory experience. So they will be like, actually, do you know what? For me, just listening to something is great. Other people will be like, I prefer to read because that's, how my brain consumes it and kind of takes it on better in some way. And I think that depending on where you are on that scale, you will either pay attention to audio or you may not. This is my theory, by the way. It may not be true, but that's how I think of it. And I think that quite often people who will just disregard audio, they may not be necessarily paying much attention to it because of the way they are wired. But I think that it's important to recognize that there are different people. And obviously we all need to, when you are creating content, you're creating content for all of those different people consuming content in different ways, and perhaps associating themselves with different senses on different kind of levels. And it's important to obviously cater for all. But so that's one thing. And second thing, it's important to do the overall audio experience, is because quite often you are in people's earphones. If the audio doesn't sound right, let's just start with the content itself. If it doesn't sound right, it's very hard to consume it. And then by adding the branding, you just make it easier for people to be memorable, to stand out from the rest, to kind of create the whole experience for them in the audio form as well as the visual form. We go extra lengths to make sure we have nice transitions on the screen, that we have lovely backgrounds and things like that, right? This is part of the experience that you give to somebody who is watching your content. And it's the same with audio. You need to provide part of the experience to stand out from the crowd, create something that represents you and sort of speaks to another person on sort of completely different level.
I totally agree. And I think it's so easy to focus just on the video. And we all, at the end of the day, we do want to stand out. We're creating content. There's so many people out there creating content, and good content. It's not just, yes, there's a lot of rubbish out there, but there's a lot of really amazing content. So we want to be able to stand out. And yes, you can create some amazing visuals, for your show. But I've always found that if you up the level of the audio, that can make you really stand out. I've noticed this since we had to replace our TV a few years ago. So, we actually, to be honest, they don't really cost much more money, but we went for a 4K TV. But I always thought, okay, 4K TV, great. But ultimately, it's the sound quality that gives you that cinema experience, So eventually we managed to save up some money for a Sonos soundbar with a subwoofer and surrounds. And my son Timothy is madly into watching Minecraft YouTube videos. And there's a guy who has this little stinger at the beginning of his video. And when we plugged the soundbar and the subwoofer in, it was like the whole house was shaking with this boom. And it was like amazing. And I thought, yeah, it just shows you, just spend a bit more money investing in the audio, and it just helps you stand out. It really does. And, Mike, your husband, Mike, on his YouTube videos, he has this really cool, in a sense that the video itself is quite simple, but the audio just it's like this. I don't even know how to describe it. It's amazing. So audio is great, but okay, I can understand that for podcasting. And maybe for YouTube videos, but for live video, and particularly video in particular, but live video, why do you think audio branding is something that we should consider investing in?
I mean, live video is no different to podcasts or YouTube video in any way, shape, or form in terms of how it is consumed. It's still a performance, and people who come to watch it, want to have an experience. So it is part of that experience. So it's no different. I don't see it any different to a YouTube channel, a YouTube video, podcast, radio station. It's the same. It's part of the experience. So no different whatsoever.
Great. That's awesome. So we're going to take a little break in a minute, and I'm going to ask you about the different kind of things that we can do. But before that, what are the different types of audio branding that we can invest in? With video brand or visual branding, we can do things like images, we can have stingers, we can have lower thirds, we can have, I don't know, loads of different things. But are there like a similar number of different things that we can do with audio branding?
There are, yes. So I guess on the most basic level, you can have a theme tune. So you can have a music that you can use, to either, I guess, talk over or like to lead in to introduction to something. And then you can cut it into shorter segments. So you can create like stingers from the music on its own, something that will just kind of still have that theme tune in there, but it will be much, much shorter. You don't want to play the whole music, obviously. So that's a great way to start. And actually, I would say it's probably the most budget-friendly way to start. You will need just a music theme and perhaps some basic editing skills, or if not, just get an editor to create those shorter sort of stabs with it. You can then expand it and go for something with a voiceover. So, if you wanted to have an intro, we have... you have an intro and you want to say something, so you want to combine visuals with the audio side, you can then do that and have a voiceover introduce certain things or say things. So it works well when it's combined with a video. Obviously, otherwise it just doesn't quite work. You can't just sit there on a screen and have a jingle playing and telling you different things. It's kind of a little bit boring. So you've got to combine it with a visual. And then you can go even further. You can have something that's sung. So you can have sung jingles. We use them on our show every Friday. So we love sung jingles. I think we are a little bit addicted to them, to be honest with you. But you can have jingles sung by singers. And those could be URLs. We use them for the URLs. So if we share them, they could be just standalone a cappella, so they could be combined with music theme. And then the step up from there is the sonic logo. So that's where you will have, say, notes to represent your either name of the company, name of website, name of your podcast stream, or whatever else. And you can have them sort of musically composed to be a sonic logo. So that's, I would say, the sort of highest level in there as well. And then you can use that sonic logo with all the other elements you do. So again, we do it quite a lot in our live stream, where we would integrate the same sonic logo in different sung jingle compositions and things like that. So yeah.
That's very exciting. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that after the break, and we can talk about how you can do it. Obviously there are different options here. You can do this yourself. You can hire people, and it doesn't need to be complicated. And I also wanted to say that, a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about on all the episodes of the podcast now is I've been talking about the advantages of starting off with a live stream like we are today, but then being able to repurpose that into a podcast. So when you're creating these visual elements with really cool audio, that will hopefully translate really, really well for the podcast part. And that's what I do on my Confident Live show. And Isabella, you were able to help with that. So we've got intros and outros and transitions, stingers, whatever you want to call them, and they're really cool. So lots of things to think about. Well, we'll be with you. I'm going to hand back to myself, and I'm going to answer some questions. So keep the questions coming in the comments, and myself and Isabella will be back with some more stuff. I can't believe I said more stuff. Anyway, yes, it's exciting stuff and valuable stuff, and I'm back live now. If you just joined, that was pre-recorded last week because Isabella can't make it today. But that's one of the great things about Restream Studio. You can have you can schedule a pre-recorded video live, as I was mentioning before, you can just go live. So all of the video is live that you're doing, or you could do what I'm doing today, which is a hybrid live. So part of it is pre-recorded and part of it is live. And that's one of the great things about Restream Studio. Excuse me. I can see that Challenge ITV says, sorry, joining late, we'll have to watch the replay. Unfortunately, I can't put the comments up on the screen today. It's completely my fault, messed up the technology, never mind. But Challenge ITV is asking a question like this. I hope things are doing well with you. It must be quite late in the evening for you in Vietnam. But the question is, Twitter Spaces can be considered as an audio branding platform. And I suppose this is the same kind of question with other similar things, like Facebook have got their own platform. There's Clubhouse as well. And I wouldn't say that but you can do audio branding on them, but audio branding is something that you do on your show. So in the same way as you visually brand your show, for example, I've got my little mic flag here. I've got a background here. I've got where is it? Up there, I've got some branding as well. So that is visual branding, but audio branding is, for example, music, or it could be something like the intro like this.
Are you ready to launch your podcast? It's time for Podcast Now with
So,
Restream.
you know, that's the intro music that we have obviously at the beginning because it's intro. That's an example of audio branding. So you could add audio branding to your Twitter Spaces experience if you wanted. If you were doing like an interview or a show on there, you could definitely do that. I can see MTGV TV says, I like Restream, but I have many issues and way too much freezing. Some apologies, you're having some issues. We're here to help you. So remember that Restream have an excellent support team. And so if you're struggling with anything like that, I tell you what, the issue that I used to have was, and it wasn't really so much to do with Restream, but with another service I was using, was my computer just was ending up overheating and getting too slow. So I'm not blaming your computer, but what I would do is make sure that you're shutting down as many apps running in the background as possible. I don't know whether you're using Restream Studio or whether you're using another app like OBS Studio to broadcast to Restream, but the experience you will have will depend on how powerful your computer is. And if your computer is running too many things in the background, then it might not be able to cope. The other thing I would say is in Restream Studio, just experiment with the different resolutions. So if you're broadcasting at 1080p and all the higher settings, you need to have a very, very powerful computer. MTGV says, I use cell phone only. That might be part of the issue. It should work, but it kind of depends on your bandwidth. So what I would check is do a speed test first. Download the speed test app. It's available on Google Play, the Google Play Store, and also on the Apple App Store. And just check your upload speed. In particular, it needs to be ideally 4 megabits per second up. You can cope with lower, but you're going to have fewer issues. Restream Studio does work on your phone, but to get the best experience, you need to use a computer. So it does work on your phone, but just check those things out. I hope that helps, but remember, we're here to help you. So any other issues, let me know. Well, I don't know whether there are... Oh yeah, Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. You've asked a great question. What is a stinger? Because of course, we come up with these weird names. I don't know why it's even called a stinger. Anyone know why it's called a stinger? A stinger actually is, so for example, a stinger can be like, it's like a little transition. Let's see if I've got one here I can play. So yeah, here's one for my show. This is a little stinger.
You're listening to the Confident Live Marketing Podcast.
So that's an example of a stinger. It's just a short little transition. And if you see beginnings of YouTube videos, sometimes they'll have like a short, like 5-second little stinger. That's what they're called. So Yeah, I hope that answers your question. I don't think there are any other questions. I think Louise was asking a question earlier about sharing your screen, and hopefully that's helped. I'm going to be sharing my screen in the next part of this interview, but I think it's time to get on with the next part of the interview with Isabella. So here we go. Thank you so much for coming back, Isabella, and helping us navigate this world of audio branding. So you very helpfully showed us through the different types of audio branding that we can do. Before we get into practical ways, I wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit more about what Music Radio Creative is and what your role is in Music Radio Creative, and particularly in the world of audio branding.
Okay, Music Radio Creative, we essentially can do everything I've mentioned before. We have our own royalty-free music library, so you can browse and get specific tracks for it. We have sound effects libraries, again, anything you can imagine is pretty much there, thousands and thousands of tracks to get through. We also specialize in providing high quality voiceovers to our customers. So we have over 150 voice artists from all different corners of the world available literally at fingertips for you to order online. It's a very easy process. What we try to do is always make it very easy and accessible for people to have access to professional voice artists. So every single voice artist on our books is somebody who has signed agreement with us, and they are full-time professional voiceover artists. So you guarantee the quality that way. We also do the full sort of mixing. So it's not just a voice artist. We can mix it with music of your choice. We have singers. We can create sonic identities, sung jingles. We also do full post editing for clients. So we post edit podcasts, video, convert live streams into YouTube videos and podcast episodes. We do all of that for our clients too. And have I missed anything? I don't think I have. So that's probably the summary of what Music Radio Creative does. In terms of what I do, my role now predominantly actually is with the marketing and the more business-oriented part of things. But I also specialize in audio branding itself. So for many years in the past, I've actually been branding specific shows. I've been working with clients to make sure to help them establish the audio branding identity and navigate it through all of those different corners.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you do there at Music Radio Creative, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that. And if you want to go to Music Radio Creative and find a bit more information, I've got an affiliate link. It is iag.me/go/MRC. So that's Music Radio Creative. Do check them out. So if we're just dipping our toe in the audio branding world, and maybe we don't have like any budget or very little budget, is there anything that we can do to just do something when it comes to audio branding?
Absolutely. And yes, the answer is yes. The best, sort of the most basic way to get started, and if you have zero budget at all, is the easiest way to get started, is to find a royalty-free music track and use it for branding in your show. There are plenty of free resources available. I know YouTube has a whole library where you have tracks that you can work with. That's just a great way to start. There are other websites that offer free music, free sound effects and things like that. In fact, if you go over to our website through Ian's link, we have a ton of free resources. So actually, there are a lot of freebies like free sound effects, free music, free voiceovers. That's the best way to start, and sort of try to create something that is unique. Even though it's free, then obviously a lot of other people use it. But if you can mix something still unique entirely for you from it and use it in a very unique way, that is the best way to get started. It's just don't go out there and not have any audio branding. I think it's important to start with something. Choose a music track that maybe represents the feel of your show, the kind of mood you want to bring your audience into. It might be something that is unique to you, that you want to pass on to your viewers as part of the experience that you provide. And yeah, start there. That's the easiest way.
Definitely. Great idea. And actually, one thing I remember is that Restream Studio, which is what we're using today, bringing Isabella in via Restream Studio, and it's how we can broadcast to all these different destinations. There is a background music feature. So when you're in studio, you click on the plus at the bottom, and then there's an option for play background music. And there's lots of different genres there, and you can adjust the level and have a little play. And the great thing about that is that you don't need to worry about your stream being taken down by the copyright gods at particularly Facebook, who can be overly zealous. YouTube is a little bit better, but you've got to obviously be careful. Maybe that's something that we should be talking about, actually, about copyright. What kind of, you've mentioned royalty free. If we go for royalty free, are we all going to be okay?
In theory, yes. Do make sure. I mean, the reality can be quite different. So I know there are a lot of websites that go through a lot of troubles at the moment with third parties all of a sudden claiming the content that they were supposed to own, but they don't. So make sure to check your source. Go for somewhere reliable where you know that it's genuine and definitely belongs to people that sell it to you. That is the key. It's one of the probably the biggest nightmares for many production companies. And that's the exact reason why when we started to create our library, I've actually just went out there and looked for musicians and work with musicians individually, and we signed very tight agreements and just own the content that then we sell on. It just makes it much, much easier for us to make sure we guarantee that nobody is going to all of a sudden come back with a claim and say, hey, this is belonging to...
And sometimes they can make mistakes. I was helping live stream our church services particularly during the pandemic, and I paid for me. I think it was through Epidemic Sound, so it's a monthly fee. It was all supposed to be legitimate, and we went live on Facebook and YouTube, and we got a takedown notice on Facebook. In fact, the stream just stopped, so everyone who was watching on Facebook could no longer see the stream live. And I think it was Sony Music claimed that they had ownership over this music, which was not true. It was completely different. I think it was like a kind of classical piano sound. And so it kind of made me think, even if it's like very similar to something else, you could get done. And I think what I've realized since then, if you want to be careful, the best way to do is to do a test run, go live with the music that you're thinking of using, and just see if it's okay. If you get a takedown notice, then you might have to look into it and see whether there's maybe other music you could use.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's just so important. Don't just use any track, because actually in the long run, it just may not be worth it. Getting that takedown notice is just horrid. So use a reliable source and kind of work from there. Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. We've got some background music that we can use. What other things that we can do? Maybe we've got a little bit more budget, and maybe we're wanting to do an intro, an outro, or other things. I don't know. You tell us what other things that we could do when it comes to audio branding on our live streams and podcasts.
Absolutely. So the next thing is the intro and outro. And it's not just audio. They really have to be audio and video. So you can't segregate the two. They need to work in unity in some way, especially on the video aspect of it. But as you said, Ian, earlier on, it's very easy because when you have the audio and video branding, you just take the audio and use it on your podcast. So it's kind of super easy transition to then obviously create content from there. So yes, so intro and outro would be the next step to think about. When it comes to video, it doesn't have to be long. It can be very simple. It could be a custom composition of music with sound effects to make that impactful intro into it. If you want it a little bit more, you can add a voiceover artist and introduce with a few words as to what it is. Again, it just has to play nicely with what is on the video at the same time. And the same for the outro. I love outros as call to action points. On video, I guess it works slightly different because you want to make sure to have flexibility to push different videos after and things like that. So you don't necessarily want to lock in to one link, one URL, etc. On audio, it works slightly differently. I also am a huge fan of testing. So I like to know how many people exactly click in from my visual stream versus how many click on from our podcast. So you may want to actually get the URLs specific for that and just actually test. Then you can see exactly, how impactful that audio branding is. So the outro is great to have. So those would be the next things to consider to add on. and also just short transitions. And I love those for URLs. On our live stream, we have a lot of short URLs that we share during the show. And I love to be able to just press the button and just play a little a cappella that sings our URL, or just a short voiceover that does that. It's just fun, and it just creates far more impact than just us saying, go to MRC this and that. It's far nicer experience, because the way and the word I want to keep using and keep emphasizing is the experience you are creating, and audio is part of it. So whatever you're thinking of adding audio, it's not just, oh, okay, so that I tick the box and it's done. No, it's part of the experience you are providing as the content creator.
Really good point. I love that. And you're starting to really sell the voices, the singing bit. I'm thinking maybe that's going to have to be what I do next time. I do a lot of singing on my podcast anyway, but
you do.
but yeah.
In that, Ian, you know.
But there's something quite cool about you could have a sponsor, for example, of your show, and you could have the show's brought to you by Restream.
Yeah.
But probably a bit better than that. But yeah, it's cool. I love all of those things. And, you know, one of the things that I did with this show, the intro and outro is something that Music Radio Creative did as a voiceover artist on that, and some music in the background. And Isabella, you were kind enough to help with that, which was great. But the video part of it is, yes, you could pay for a video editor. But what I did is I used a tool called Wave Video. So I imported the audio into that, and then I made the video trying to, when the voiceover would say certain things, I would put the text on the screen. It's not the most amazing thing in the world. I'm not a professional video editor, but it does really well. And you know,
yeah.
So that's another thing that you could do. So in terms of music voiceover artists, there are obviously not an infinite, but there are like loads of different types of voices out there. There's obviously, we can choose different accents. We could, if we're an English speaking one, we could have American, Australian, Scottish, British, I don't know, whatever.
You name it.
you name it. And of course, if your primary language is not English, then there are loads of different artists out there. And I know at Music Radio Creative, you have a plethora of different. In fact, you are a voiceover artist yourself.
I am,
which is great. Yeah. So tell us, like, when it comes to accents and the type of voice, male and female, and all that kind of stuff, what should we be looking for?
Again, I'm just going to go back to the experience part. Okay, so you have to create the whole experience for the viewer, listener, and the voice needs to be part of it. So think about, where is your audience? What would make it interesting for them? What would engage they listening? What would grab their attention? But equally, is this going to work well with your voice? Is it going to work well with all the presenters that are around? Is that voice going to work well with the music that you've selected? So think of all of those different elements that you are using with it. As an example, if you have a show that maybe talks to predominantly 50 plus males, and it's about, I don't know, fly fishing, and it's extremely niche, you're hardly going to put in like super young guy with a very hard sell voice. It's just going to stand out in a really awkward way. So you need to find something that perhaps stands out, but in a way that fits the whole image of what you are doing and forms that part of a good experience you want to provide.
It's so true. Like, I'm a massive audio book reader, or listener, I should say. And like the whole book can be destroyed by, in my opinion, the wrong type of voice. It just doesn't fit what I'm expecting. And it's very much a personal thing. So I think sometimes we can have an idea in our heads, which is the perfect voice. And I think we have to be happy with the voice that we choose. But would you not say that there's a more important person when it comes to this? And it's not us, it's our listeners, it's our viewers, and what they are looking for. Would you suggest that it's a good idea to do more research? Obviously, we should have a good idea of who our perfect audience is. But is that something that you've looked into, or is it something you just got this gut feeling about?
No, you 100% should be having some sort of data behind your decisions. I don't think that it's something that you should just go with your gut and say, oh, it's great. Although, saying that, if you're just starting, you have no data. So you will have to start with your gut, or at least with your idea of who you would like to target, because surely you are starting a live stream or YouTube channel or a podcast and you're thinking, oh, actually, those are the people I want to target. So think of the people you want to target first. But I will also add, with choosing the voice, 50% the voice and 50% ability to deliver the script. So somebody may have a great voice, but they will have absolutely zero ability to use it. And you can go to Fiverr and it's like thousands of voices. Hey, I've got a great voice. So what? You don't know how to use it. And it's when we take on voice artists on board, I would say out of 10 applicants, maybe one will actually have that ability. And those are usually people who have been working with audio for many years, do it professionally. And that can make a difference. That can make it or break it. It's not just the voice. It's how that voice acts your script, how much life it adds to the script, how it can take it and give the right emotion and stress the right words. And that is what really is important in all of this. So I would say don't just go and look for a voice. Make sure to go to a place that works with professional voice artists who have trained to do that kind of thing well.
It's so true. And I have a bee in my bonnet about this. It's use the words life, putting life into it, emotion, stressing the right words. Because what you don't want is to employ a voiceover artist who is basically like a glorified train announcer. And it's like, welcome to Podcast Now. The train at platform 5 is the... Don't be like that. It's got to... You've got to put the emotion into it. And I suppose that this is another really interesting thing. I've talked about this loads on the show in the past about confidence. And sometimes most of the time people put under deliver. There's not enough energy in their delivery because the camera is this energy sucking device. But sometimes people can over deliver, and it could be, and welcome to Podcast Now. And I don't know whether you've seen this before. But I have listened to a few podcasts where it is the intro I can only describe as epic. It's like low drones and like big string sounds, and it's welcome to the show. And then when the actual host comes in, it's hello and welcome to the... And
Oh, I have seen this. This is just absolutely horrible. This is the brilliant example of, I have this great idea. This is what it's going to be versus this is the reality. And some people are very disassociated between the two. But I guess it's like you need somebody to keep you in check. You need an Isabella to keep you in check and all this.
Absolutely. And this is something that you do. So Music Ready Creative, you don't just take people's money. You actually, part of the process, and you'll give people advice in terms of the script. But that's something I think is really important. You think about what are the kind of the vibes that you're giving across in the podcast and in the show, and maybe you need to do some work on that. You probably, in a lot of cases, will need to raise the energy levels up. But maybe you're just quite a quiet person, and that's totally fine. But don't just choose like a mega energetic intro at the start, because that's going to make you sound...
It's going to be like, oh, this is a bit of a letdown. After the intro, your like expectations are there, and then everything goes down from there. You don't want to start like that for sure. But...
You don't. That leaves us probably to one thing that we've touched upon, and that's music. And this is almost, I don't know, in my mind, this is even more complicated, possibly because I trained as a professional musician, and I think music is such an amazing thing. But it's so subjective, and it can divide. And when it comes to choosing the music that you want on your show, you might really like hardcore hip hop and rap or death metal or something like that. But that might not be the best for your audience. And I've found that I've got quite an eclectic taste in music, but I've found that my audience doesn't always share that. So tell us, what should we think about when it comes to music? And I assume part of that is the mood and all that kind of stuff that we're trying to convey.
It is. And I think that the main thing you need to remember is that there is no way that you will ever satisfy everybody's taste. Like, it's just impossible. It is just impossible. You will have 100 listeners, and each of them may have a completely different taste in music. But it's not about taste in music. Again, it's about the experience. So as long as the music kind of ties in with everything else you do on the screen and provides and enhances the experience that you give to your viewer, to your listener, then that's okay. And I think the music tastes in some ways are important because they could, especially if your show is personality driven, if it's part of your personality that you sell as your experience that you provide, then I think that it plays quite an important part to have something that ties in with your personality. But equally, it's very easy to get carried away, and you have to think of not dividing the audience if you can help it. So if your music tastes are on completely extreme ends, then think of trying to balance it down maybe a little bit and work from there. But think of the mood, think of the kind of emotions that you evoke with the music that you select, and think of the overall experience once again when selecting the track.
Really good tips. And the thing is, you're not stuck with this forever, of course.
Right.
With my live show, we had so much fun, by the way, in episode 1, because you actually came on the show and we did a bit of a skit on, I think I was talking about, I wanted the Halle Orchestra and a nose flute and you came and said, no, that's a bad idea. It was very funny. But so for the first 100 episodes, we had one theme and one voiceover artist, and then we switched it for the next. And on this show, we've rebooted it quite a few times. So before it was it Go Live with Confidence? I can't remember. And now, so it's a different one. Every kind of season, you can change it and tweak things. And it doesn't have to be, presumably, Isabella, it doesn't have to be like a full on, completely change everything. You could tweak little bits, presumably.
You can, absolutely. And sometimes those little tweaks, it's the whole branding aspect, it takes you on a journey, because when you start to create content, you all of a sudden find yourself on that journey, and the train is moving and you are moving with it. And, things change as the time passes, and your initial ideas may have evolved from the moment that you've started. And I think those little tweaks along the way are perhaps even better in the sense of that show is evolving together with you, and the branding should evolve too. And it's the same with the visual branding. You will make tweaks, and there are things that are trendy at the time, but then maybe after a while they are not so trendy, so you want to update it. But also you need to make sure that you keep the show interesting for yourself too. It needs to be fun for you. It needs to be something that you are happy with. To after 100 episodes, you'll be like, oh, here it is again. It needs to be engaging for you as well, because if it is, then the experience you give is far better to the end listener. As an example, we bring new jingles to our show pretty much every month. But all of them tie in with the same logo. So we have a Sonic logo identity that we've developed. So all of the music themes and different bits will have that in common. So we carry that on as we go along, which is the thing that kind of glues it together and makes sense.
I love that, because one of the things I always recommend that my clients do is, if they're starting a new business, is to come up or to commission a style guide. So this is a branding guidelines. It's so important. So like what colors to use, what fonts to use. And it makes such a massive difference to the overall feel. But why not have a Sonic guidelines as well? Is that what you called it? I just love that. And so it just means that you can tweak things, but you're not going to go from, if the kind of style is, I don't know, sophisticated jazz, you're probably not going to go to death metal or something like that.
Well, but no, the thing is with Sonic logo, it doesn't matter. You can have an 80s music track.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Instrumental, classical music track, and you can bring them together with the same Sonic identity. So it doesn't matter. I don't know whether I can play some examples. I don't know whether that will work. Can I? Is that going to...
We can try. What if it's coming through?
All right.
Let's...
Because I think it's easier to actually show rather than try and explain in so many different ways. So we've just recently done new jingles, new themes for our show. And if you give me a second, I am going to find the right tracks and
No, that sounds good.
play them for
Nothing
you.
like trying stuff on the fly.
Yeah, on the fly. I will see if I can. If I put it up, I think it will play on my end and then should play on yours. But if it goes terribly wrong,
You'll figure. Yeah, I'm sure everyone will forgive us if it does, but it should be
okay.
fine.
So here is a rock bed. All right, and see if you can spot the logo. Hang on. Did that play for you?
It did, yes.
Okay, it did. All right. So here is the rock one, and here is 80s. Is that short? Did you hear the same logo at the end? Is the music radio? Look for musicradiocreative.com.
Yeah, I can hear the da at the end.
Yeah. So, and there is a super chilled one here. I think. There we go. Did you hear it?
Ah, yeah.
So
yeah.
you can bring all sorts of different genres in and actually glue them together with your sonic identity. And that's what it is. So depending on the kind of show we have, what we talk about, I can choose what I'm bringing in and tie it in with this cool sonic logo.
I love that. Oh, you got my brain going now with all these different styles that we could. And I'm thinking, what can I have for mine? I need to think of a little tune. Well, presumably you've got musicians, composers, and that come up with these things. That's a great job. Let's face it, that's such a fun job. So Isabella calls you up. I want you to come up with, 3 different styles for the Sonic logo. I wouldn't mind being paid for that.
And it's actually musicians who do this for a living, and they do it very well. They are paid really good money for it. You can imagine it's the top musicians can earn really top money for it. So
I'm really pleased about that, because being in the musical world and knowing so many struggling musicians, it's good to know that there are some musicians out there that are doing well.
Doing well, yes.
Yeah. Awesome. That is so good. So I think there's something for everyone. If you've got a limited budget, there are still things you can do. You can, if you've got the editing skills, of course, you can do all this together. You can hire a voiceover artist as well, or you could just get a team like from Music Radio Creative to just do it all for you. And how does that work? If somebody comes to you and they say, like, Isabella, I want to have an intro and outro. I don't really know what I want, but can you help me? Presumably you can help with that, but as well as somebody goes to you and says, I know exactly what I want and I want you to deliver it. How does it work?
Yeah, we can work with you either way. So we can help regardless of what stage you're at, or you don't know. And we have something there for you definitely either way. So a vast majority of people who come to us will be like, do you know what? I know what script I have and I want a voice artist to record it. So here it is. And they just type it. You can type the script online, get an instant quote, place your order online. It's just super easy. If you don't quite know what you would like and you would like to work with us to help you, we have audio branding packages where we can do the whole process with you. So we would talk about who's your audience, how do you want to sound, what is it you want it to be, and then we gather all the information and then give you some recommendations. So we can do it that way too. Either way is completely fine. But that's what we do day in and out, and we specialize in this, and we try to make something exciting and help you create the experience you want to create for your viewers or listeners.
Oh, thanks, Isabella. It is awesome. I've just really enjoyed working with you over the years. Or you working for me, basically, because you've done all the work. But it's been great. And I'd highly recommend Music Radio Creative. Do check them out at iag.me/go/MRC. And of course, once you've got all these assets and you've created the videos, you can just drop them into Restream Studio. You can then play them as an intro video and outro. And that's what I do. I actually have the intro video, the outro video, and a few other things already loaded up, so I can just click the button, which is great. Yeah, presumably the website is the best place for people to follow you. Have you carelessly scattered yourselves across the socials as well? What's the best place that people can stalk you in a nice way?
I have, yes. I can be found on both Facebook and Twitter. I guess Twitter is probably the best way. So everywhere I'm just at Isabella, spelled Izabela. Russell, Russell. So Isabella Russell. You can find me on all the different socials there.
That's great. And yeah, one way to remember the spelling is just no double letters in the first in your Isabella and double in the second one. I always just need to double check because I know a few Isabellas who spell it differently. And so, yeah.
Name can be spelled in many different ways. So Isabella with a Z and one L.
That's cool. Thank you, Isabella. It's been great to have you on the show. And yeah, let's just go back and I'll answer your questions. Well, thanks, Isabella. That was awesome. And I can see that we're actually over time now, but I can see we had a question from Gary who says, can you explain what the rules are for using a karaoke version of copyright or popular music? And this is the whole thing for copyrighted music, really. You have to be really, really careful because particularly Facebook has this pretty zealous copyright detection system. YouTube too. But yes, I mean, I would suggest if you're going to be playing copyrighted music, you do need to have a license for it. I know that there's a service called Lickd, which is lickd.com, which allows you to purchase a license for certain copyrighted music. There's also mixcloud.com is worth looking into. If you're wanting to play copyrighted music, mixcloud.com, the premium version of that, allows you to stream without any issues, which is great. So that's great for radio stations and things like that. As for karaoke, it's still, you are playing copyrighted music probably, and so you could find yourself in trouble. I used the backing track of YMCA once I was talking about. Well, I won't go into all the details, but I was singing along to that, and I had to get permission from the company in order to use it on a live stream, and that was absolutely fine. So I know that kind of doesn't really answer your question. But I would just test it out. Be careful. Always test it out with potentially copyrighted music. Make sure that you have the license, but then just do a little test stream and make sure that Facebook are okay with it. Because the last thing that I would want is you to go live with it and then Facebook in particular just cuts your stream, which has happened to me. So I hope that helps. Well, we're out of time. As I said, do check out Music Radio Creative at iag.me/go/MRC. And also check out Restream and Restream Pairs, this new and exciting feature. And if you want to find out more about that and sign up for Restream, then all you need to do is go to iag.me/Restream. But we are out of time. Just to let you know, I'm going to be away next week and the week after, but I will be back, and I look forward to seeing you. And I really encourage you to launch your podcast not next week, but now. See you soon. Bye.